it in graduate and professional school. And I won't hold you too long, and I definitely want to make sure that you have your questions answered. So feel free to type in any questions in the chat room, and we'll make sure you walk away from this session with answers that you are needing. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So deciding to go to graduate and professional school is definitely a personal choice. But first and foremost, we have to ask ourselves, is it for me? Am I sure? Am I sure that I'm sure? And am I sure I want to go now? And when we talk about going to grad school, we have to ask ourselves these questions because it's actually a commitment and not an application. So when we say that, it means yes, you can apply, but not only when you are applying, the application process is itself a commitment, but starting and completing graduate school is the ultimate commitment as well. So you want to make sure you are going for the right reasons. And what does that mean? Why do you actually want to go? Are you looking for assistance in career? Are you looking for additional knowledge? Is it going to help you move forward in that career? Or are you going for, knowledge sake and learning more? Does the field that you want to go into require it? There are lots of disciplines that require advanced degrees, so that's definitely a consideration as well. Do you enjoy it enough to commit to it for 2, 3, 4, 7 years, depending on which program you're going into, and even more if we're going into medical school? Then we also want to think about, do I enjoy this? Am I really going to enjoy this time? There will be some long days, which turn into long nights, which turn into even longer days. So, am I ready for all that it entails? And that then brings us to that third, am I sure I'm sure? Because we want to make sure that we're doing this for us. A lot of times, especially in undergrad, we study things that our family may want us to study, or we study things that other individuals want us to study. So, in deciding to go to grad school, we have to be sure we're doing this for ourselves and not for someone else, even though they are a great motivation. You are the one that has to start and finish this race. And then, in that same regards, we have to think about timing. Is now the time for me to go? Do I have any other responsibilities or commitments that will keep me from actually being able to start and finish my graduate and professional school, graduate and professional school? So, when we think about that, what we come to next then is finding the right match and making sure the programs that we apply to are going to be a good fit for us. And what that means is simply thinking about, again, can I start and can I finish? Um, a lot of the institutions have high reputations in certain fields. Does what they're known for in your interest alive? Are there faculty members who are going to be there doing your research that you actually can be in their lab, or they can be your advisors and mentors and chairs of your committee? They're going to be there to support your research. They're there doing things that you want to do and can see yourself complementing their research and producing future research and collaborations together, as well as the current students. How are the current students at a program or institution? Are they enjoying themselves? Are they finishing the program in the suggested amount of time, whether it's 2, 3, 5, 7 years, depending on the field and the program? Have they run into any difficulty? Are there any obstacles? How do we research and ask these questions? It's a matter of visiting. And when I say visit, it's and research, it's one that, yes, you want to try and get to the campus and interact in person with the faculty, current students, and staff, as well as Googling online, looking at all the various reports and research journals and what other evidence of the quality of program that there may be. That also includes talking to alumni, talking to individuals who have gone through the program, partnered with the program, research with the program. Or more importantly, the number one thing when we say visit is completing an undergraduate research opportunity or doing some sort of research and having an extended visit to the campus and increasing that engagement and interaction. From there, it's a matter of getting in. And after you've decided to go, getting in the application process is really where the commitment starts, because the application process can be a part-time job depending on the program and discipline that you're looking to apply to. And we say that simply because the application uh, the application consists of many things, and the first commitment level comes with how are you going to pay for the applications, and looking at funding for the entrance exams, paying for transcripts, postage, anything else the application may require, the application fees, all of that. So the first commitment comes with the application and the time and the funding for getting into grad school. So once you've made that commitment, this is where all specifics of the application and spending time start to come into play. Each program will have a different process. Everyone will have a demographic portion. When we say demographic, that means your GPA, your name, your location, all the schools you have attended, your transcripts, that sort of information. So we like to call that sometimes the score or portion, or again, the demographic information. Then you will be asked for a personal statement or essay questions. Again, it depends on the program and the field. The personal statement will have various lengths to it, as well as the essay questions. Some are very specific in word limits. Others are very open-ended and say, just answer these and provide us this information. Another part of the application is the standardized test. Depending on the program and field that you'll be going into, the most common is the graduate the GRE, and that exam is pretty standard amongst most of your graduate and professional graduate programs, meaning your master's and doctoral level. Your professional schools will require a little bit something else in their standardized test. That may be the GMAT, which is for business, LSAT, which is for law. Psychology requires the discipline-based focus within the GRE. Your med school has the MCAT. Engineering has additional tests. So your specific program and field of study has a defined standardized test, and it may be more than one. The application also includes letters of recommendation, and your letters of recommendation are going to come from your faculty members who have seen you in the classroom, being in the lab, your lab mentors, your internship hosts, anyone you've done research with, as well as any personal letters or character references, and we'll get into that later as well. And then the last, and you see it on here twice intentionally in terms of checking for errors. That is so that when you look at your application, you're always being mindful of putting your best foot forward, and you're checking for those errors before you hit submit in all of those individual parts, and then again as a whole. And once you have your whole application completed, you're going to apply early and on time, and that is a very important factor in graduate and professional school admissions. When you apply early, not only are you signaling to the admissions committee that you are committed and ready to go and invested in your future success, but submitting on time and early and on time, allows them to see how you're going to perform on other tasks in the lab or in the classroom. Waiting to the last minute shows up a lot in the application process. Of course, it's not a direct correlation 100% of the time, but a lot can be read about when the application is actually submitted. And with that being said, you want to take those admissions tests, those standardized tests early to make sure that your complete application can be submitted early and on time. And there is a link included on these slides. And you'll also receive a resource guide that has that information when we send out the PowerPoints and other information following the webinar. So all that general information, everyone's still good? Go ahead and check, hit yes for me, or even just Y in the chat room to make sure we are good to go before we move on. And as you are getting to your chat rooms, here is a suggested timeline for applications. Fantastic. So in thinking about your applications, we want to look at when is the best time for you to actually complete your application. And this gives you a big picture overview for your senior year. The summer before your senior year, you want to think about starting to write your personal statement and your goals and really thinking about your future. Of course, the summer before your senior year, you may be doing an internship, you may be in a lab, you're probably going to be very busy, but we want to take this time to really chart out what the year is going to look like and what are all the things that you need to do and create a special notebook. That way, every bit of information can go into this notebook, and you are ahead of the game and not scurrying at the last minute and trying to pull information together for your letter writers or anyone else or any other item in the application process. We want to also start looking at our graduate programs of interest and request information. If we haven't done an undergraduate research experience or some sort of research opportunity at an institution that we're thinking of going, we want to see what are their visit days. Get those on the calendar, get them in that notebook so that, again, we're preparing in advance. We want to study for the GRE if we have not already taken it or additional standardized tests. We want to begin our studying in the summer before the school year starts so that we aren't stressed out or having to cram it in the last hour before we sit down for the exam. Then we want to think about September. September is when you start to share some information with your advisors and your professors and ask for feedback, and really work on that personal statement. And we'll get into the personal statement again as, a little bit later. You then want to actually register for your standardized test. Now it says GRE, but again, I will reference any of the standardized tests that are needed for grad and professional school. You want to go ahead and register for them, given that some of them are only offered twice a year, others are only offered one time a year. The location that you may prefer may fill up very quickly, especially as we move closer to October and November. So you want to get your dates secured. And what you're going to be able to do once you have your date secured, you'll be able to create yet another timeline for studying if you haven't taken, if you are not enrolled in a prep course. So from there, October is the suggested time frame for taking those standardized tests, whatever they may be, and especially if they're offered. Again, some are only offered twice a year, some are offered once a year, so we want to be mindful of that as well. But October is typically the suggested time frame for taking the GRE, which is your general graduate entrance exam, and then looking again at your personal statement, ordering your transcripts for your applications, and pulling all of this information together. By October, you've also started to visit some of your campuses or interacted with faculty, current students, alumni, staff members, started going to grad school fairs. Those sorts of activities are taking place in October. November, that's where applications, you can start to download them, you can complete them and start submitting them if you have your faculty recommendations. Now, with your faculty recommendations, November is the last date that you want to request one because you actually want them back. So sometimes I suggest asking for faculty letters in October, and you'll see here it says ask for them in November. We say October, and if it is in November, we want an early part of November because what comes next week? It's Thanksgiving. It's our holidays. You know, it's the time when you're at the end of classes, trying to get your exams done, trying to focus on any last-minute assignments, and so are your faculty members. So they start to become busy, and they may not have as much focused attention. December brings us time when applications should be submitted. There are lots of different deadlines, as we mentioned earlier, and each program is different, but December is a general guideline for submitting your application, and that, again, gives you time if something is missing or if your scores are still yet to be delivered, or you need to update an address or any sort of information. Having things in December gives you time to do that. Again, it also shows your commitment and investment. You can submit your application as early as September. Usually they open around Labor Day, but again, be mindful of what your department recommends and the information that you've gleaned from researching and engaging with them. January, you can do a follow-up. February, it says visit, but if you've already visited prior to, this is another time to visit, especially if they have an admitted student weekend. That means they're going to give you any additional information, or it may be interview season if you are in some of the science programs that have a second look where you can come back to campus and actually be interviewed for the program. We also want to look at our federal aid. So completing your FAFSA, it's still necessary in graduate school. Also looking at additional funding opportunities begins to take on more importance in February and March. April, you should have your admissions decision by April. Some come a little earlier, some come a little late, depending on the program's deadline and whether they are a hard deadline or a rolling admissions deadline. And if it is a hard deadline, April 15th is usually is the date that you must accept or decline your offer. So that is a very big picture timeline for the application and the grad school process. And moving forward from there, let's talk about the letters of recommendation first. And we'll do that in saying, going back to our discussion in the timeline of when you should ask and how you should ask. You definitely want to ask your faculty members. Typically, applications ask for 3 letters of recommendation, and 2 of those should be from faculty members. 1 can be from an internship or some other supervisor who can speak to some of your leadership capabilities and other qualifications and skills that a faculty advisor cannot. So someone who's seen you in the classroom, as well as one of those faculty members who's seen you in a lab within our STEM fields. That gives you a broad range of information. So when you should ask, again, October is a great time to ask. Give them as much information as possible. So when we say that, that means creating a folder for them. So whether electronic or in hard copy, that has general information about the school and the program that you're applying to, what they're known for, why you're interested in applying, and what information you would want them to include in a letter on your behalf. What you're doing is making it easier for them to write the letter for you and giving them prompts. There are some faculty members who will ask, for this information. Others will say, great, I'll write it, and they will, of course, rely on their best judgment for the letter. But you want to arm them with as much information to boast about you and share how wonderful you are and how every school and program should have you in there as a student in their program. Also within that bit of information, including the rest of your transcript, resume, personal statement, and career goals becomes very important to sharing. And again, arming your faculty or letter writer with as much information as possible. So if you have not already started asking your faculty members or letter writers for meetings or asking for those letters, now is the time to do it. Again, considering we're going into the holidays and you want to give them as much information as possible as soon as possible so that they can plan their time wisely. What you don't want to do is say, hey, I need a letter of recommendation and it's due tomorrow. Well, that might not be such a positive move, because then they would be in a negative headspace in writing that. That is, of course, there is a dire situation and you all are very, very good faculty, student, mentor, mentee relationships. So we want to always try and keep our letter writers happy and give them as much information in advance as possible. Then you want to follow up after you've given them a deadline and just say, hey, is there any information that you may need or to help in assisting? A lot of times you will not know that your letter writers have completed their information, because the graduate school application will give you a choice to see it or to waive the information, to waive your letter of viewing your letter of recommendation, And most of the time, your letter writers will actually provide you a copy, or they will just say it's submitted, it's done, and that's how you will know. You definitely want to show trust here. And this is why selecting your letter writers is of the utmost importance, because you trust that they're going to write a quality letter on your behalf. Now, why do we talk about letters of recommendation first? We do that first before our personal statement, only to show that you need your personal statement to help arm your letter writers to support your application. Your application is your commercial. You want everything to be consistent and telling the same story, where you have sold yourself on your behalf and your letter writer's behalf. And that starts with your personal statement. This is your time to boast and tell all the good news that you have done. Do not be shy in your personal statement. You want to start early, plan well, and give yourself plenty of time to go through multiple drafts. You currently have 6 seconds to keep to catch and keep an admissions committee's attention, and that is some of that time frame comes out of HR as well. If you were applying for a job, they will scan your resume and take about 6 seconds. So you want to take that same concept of 6 seconds of how do I share my story of who I am, of why I'm interested in this discipline, in this field, in this program, and what I bring to the program. What evidence do I have that I am a good fit and that I belong in this program, whether it's research, whether it's undergrad, major, personal experience. You have to show you off. And once you have that shown, your letter writer can then build on top of that. So this is why your personal statement is of the utmost importance. The length of your personal statement or those essay questions that some programs will require may be determined. Some want it as short as 250 to 300 words. Others want it as long as 2 pages. So it really will be program and field specific, what is required of you. Please be mindful of the word count. They are doing it for a reason. They're wanting to see how well you follow directions, how concise you can be, but still clearly articulate your point and answer either their questions, or if it is an open-ended personal statement, how well you tell your story. Again, all of this goes back to how well you will perform in the lab, as well as in the classroom, and overall be a fantastic contributor to and collaborator to the program and peers and faculty, research or industry, or whatever pathway you choose to go within your graduate and professional career. With that being said, you want to remember your audience. A research program that is focused on research will require a different framework than one that is focused on more applied and practical skill. So you want to be mindful of which one you're going into, and remember who's reading it, and ask for help and support. This is where visits and research and engaging with faculty, current students and staff, and your programs of interest become very important. You will start to pick up on words that they use. What is the jargon and the language that your program of interest uses? What is repeatedly said? Do they shorten information, or do they, spell everything out? Are they very quick and to the point, or again, they explain themselves thoroughly and quickly? What are the words that they like to keep using? In addition, what are they looking for? You'll be able to address what they're actually looking for in their ideal student if you engage them in those kind of conversations, and you'll be able to tailor your statement to what they have asked for, or what you have gleaned from your interactions with them. You also want to be mindful of errors. Again, remember I had checked for errors in that other slide twice. You want to be mindful of your errors in your personal statement. There should be 0 errors. And within this, we say, if you know you're applying to multiple schools, you want to tailor each personal statement to each school and program. And in tailoring, you want to make sure that you have identified the proper program and institution in each personal statement. You do not want to apply to institution X, but have institution Y's name in there. Sometimes that's an automatic denial, because that's showing not a care and concern for detail. Especially in STEM fields, we have to be mindful of those details. We want to demonstrate strong writing skills and proficiency in the English language. So this is another chance to say you can communicate well within the given parameters and time frame, and you will be able to communicate, 1, with your audience, and 2, both in discipline and with someone who may not be within the discipline and on the review committee. Oftentimes there are individuals who are reviewing these applications on behalf of the department, and they need to be able to understand what you're speaking of as well. So again, this is your time to boast. Do not wait to the last minute, because we can tell a rough draft personal statement from those that have gone through many drafts and refinements, to where if we were to place every single sentence individually on a piece of paper or on a computer, and we removed one sentence, it changes the meaning of the personal statement. That shows that that sentence was very valuable and important and integral to the overall statement. So we want to see a statement that is that tight and that informative in the word count and parameters given. With that being said, so other questions you want to think about within the application process is, how are you going to finance grad and professional school? So we've applied and we've thought about the financing part, but now we have to think about, can I afford to start and finish grad and professional school? Because we definitely, again, want to go back to that commitment of starting and finishing the degree. You do not want to think about be in a situation where you've spent 2.5 years, but now we can't afford to finish the degree because of other financial situations, barring a sudden emergency or life circumstance. So going to graduate school, getting in and making it, part of it is that financial aspect. And we'll spend a little bit of time here because the financial literacy portion is so important. So how much will it cost? You want to think about the application process fees, cost of living, lost wages if you're currently working, not transitioning from undergrad, or if you're going back to school, you've taken a year off. You want to think about all of this when it goes into the cost of grad and professional school, as we touched upon earlier in the application process. But that cost of living in the area, the lost wages, that becomes very important to say, is it worth it? And when we think about cost of living, is it going to be worth it to move from a place where I can have a 1-bedroom apartment that's about $600 a month to a place where a 1-bedroom apartment may cost me $1,200 a month, yet I'm going to have to relocate and I have to take my family, and there's other special circumstances, and do I know how to budget, and can my money last me for all 4 years or even 1 year? What do I have that can make sense for me financially? That goes into that financial aspect. And then thinking about, if I had to pay all of my expenses, how much am I willing to pay on my own? If I did not receive any sort of aid, funding, and I just had me and my savings or the ability to work, how much is it worth it? And actually, I want you all to pop into the chat here, and there are 5 different levels. Let me know how much you are willing to pay if you had to pay out of pocket for your graduate or professional expense. Is it the $25,000? Is it $50,000? Is it $100,000? $150,000 or $200,000? Michelle says $100,000. And Ramona is typing. Ramona also says $100,000. John has said $50,000. Michelle says $100,000, and Margaret has said $50,000. Ellen's coming in at $50,000. So you guys are right around that $50,000 to $100,000. We have one more coming in at $50K. All right. So we're all kind of clustering around $50,000. When we think about graduate and professional school, that's how much it's worth. So what does $50,000 equate to for you? It becomes, a house, a car, paying off undergrad debt if that's what you had, getting married and going on your honeymoon, and all the expenses of, becoming a newlywed with your significant other. It goes into additional life experiences, right? So you have to say, if I'm willing to spend $50,000 to $100,000 on my graduate education, it has to be worth it for that. I'm willing to trade off and sacrifice a little now for something later. So we want to think about what that sacrifice is. So I'm glad to see you all hanging out around that number. But of course, even more importantly, it says you're willing to invest. Now, with your commitment to invest, hopefully you will not need to invest that much. And you now see a chart of the education-related debt load of doctorate recipients. And this is from 2009 and 2010 of the number of individuals who came out with debt. And where you guys are hanging out within that 50 to 100,000, you'll see is a little more than some pay for. Professional schools definitely are in that range. So to see your level of commitment in investing in your education is really important. So again, hopefully you won't have to pay for it, because if you ask the program and engage the program and what portion of students receive funding and how long are they funded, how are they funded is also important. Are there graduate assistantships? Are there fellowships? Do I have to take out loans? Or the simplest way to ask it is, how are you going to pay me to be your student? I am so awesome that you should be paying me. I should not have to pay that $50,000 to $100,000 for my education. but what can the department and program do for me in terms of the funding? Of course, that application evidences your skill set and why they should be paying you to go. So John just popped in and said, TA, yes, being a teacher's assistant is very important. So with these various types of assistantships, of opportunities, there comes the time to ask. And I did it in a little kind of fun format. If we were in person, I would actually ask one of you to think about the sound of this duck, and everyone knows that commercial, right? It's the Aflac duck, and it's the insurance. So funding for graduate school is insurance. You want to ask, or the AF of Aflac. You want to ask for that funding. Then you actually want to apply for it, because a lot of times we ask about it, but we don't apply for it. And in applying for it, your application into the program is actually the first step in. It's an automatic application into department and institutional funding. In addition to the department and institutional funding, there may be other funds available. That's, again, we're asking and engaging the department of what is available. A TA usually comes from asking, and is there an additional part to the application? How do I qualify for the funding? Again, goes back to the asking. And then adding an extra part to the Aflac bit is the me. How do I maintain that funding? Because it's one thing to come in with funding, and if it only lasts for a year, how else do I maintain this funding? Is it contingent upon me keeping a certain GPA? Is it contingent upon me finding my own grants? If I have to find my own grants, are you going to help me find my own grants? So asking these questions becomes very important. And again, that goes back to engaging and researching and visiting the department. Then you want to ask about exceptions. If you're an international student, are there exceptions to funding that is available? If you are a student who has a different citizenship, or if you are a student who is not full-time, if you're working part-time, what are the exceptions to the funding and awards that are typically offered? If I am a TA, can I take on any other responsibilities? If I receive a fellowship, can I receive duplicate fellowship awards? Meaning I have one that's external to your program from a National Science Foundation, and then the institution wants to give me an award as well. Can I receive both? Or is that double dipping that I can only accept one? Again, you are so awesome. They want to give you money. And then going back, I want to make sure that we touch upon the types of funding available. Again, you have grants and scholarships. You have your graduate fellowships, your merit or application based. Again, your application into the program starts your level of support in the department, as well as highlighting merit in terms of what your academic experience and prior skill set brings into the program. Your fellowships also become more of the institutional level. When we say institutional level, meaning what the institution offers for its outstanding students, what the department offers for its outstanding students that's beyond the norm, that are very limited in scope. Graduate assistantships. This is where work and services exchange, and within graduate assistantships, you also have your TAs, your teaching assistantships, your research assistantships. Those type I've kind of all clumped into graduate assistantships. And with that, you are working, but you're receiving your tuition and some other your benefits, oftentimes your health benefits, some other stipend in addition to in exchange for your service. Loans. Private and federal monies you must repay. This is where we start to get into that investment where you guys said you were willing to pay the $50,000 to $100,000, but hopefully everything will come through the first three before we get into the final three. Personal or family support. Now we are coming of age where individuals have the 529 and other educational savings plans that are available. We have, if you are going to school and employed, we have the tuition remission that is available. That's also available in some graduate assistantships where they're paying for your actual classes. This is where family members who have donated to other private means, or when you have your open houses, this is where some of your funds from your open house as gifts, as graduation gifts, can go into your tuition. And I mentioned the employer assistance programs. So funding becomes a definite consideration because, again, you want to make sure you have enough to start and finish, not just to cover your tuition, but your cost of living, and any other experiences you want to have. That includes traveling to professional organizational meetings like the conference, the LSMCE conference, or any other conference that may be within your discipline or that can help you grow and share your vast knowledge and continue your excellence in your career. So let's think positively and move forward in thinking that we were paid, we received a fellowship or some other support for our application, and we've accepted it with our admission into the program. And then we want to think about transitioning into the program and making it not just for 1 year, but all the years that it may take. Again, going back to that, how grad and professional school is a commitment. So what does it mean when we say making it? Making it means finding your place, your community and belonging, and really being comfortable and enjoying, for the most part, each day of getting up and going into the lab or going to do research or going into the clinic or doing what it is you want to graduate a professional school for. And how do you find your place? Your peer group. You want to think about your student and professional organizations and activities, both on campus and in the community. What is available to you that's going to help get you where you need to go? Your mentors. Who is there to not only give you information, to look out for you when you really are having a bad day and no one's seen you? This person is looking out and asking those questions and being there as a sense of support. You can also have your peer mentors as well. Within mentoring, we also have our sponsors, those who are looking out for us when we're not even in the room, who is suggesting us as research associates, who is suggesting us to be collaborators on future projects or to be summer leads when we're doing some of our undergraduate research experiences or when we're within our first year. Who's looking out for us when when it becomes a matter of you being overwhelmed as a graduate student or a professional student? They're the ones that say, no more, no more. I'm going to protect that person a little bit. They're going to protect you a little bit. So we want to think about what level of mentorship in all of those aspects, advisors, support, sponsorship are available. Then you want to think about community-wise, house of worship, living arrangements, community involvement, getting involved, and again, finding that place that's comfortable. That includes your hobbies. Do not lose your hobbies. Whatever is keeping you sane right now, you want to continue on those not so good days and those extra long days to give you a break and a stress relief, to be re-energized. Sometimes it takes a little bit of the edge off and gives everyone a chance to just clear their head, come back and look at data sets with a little bit more of a fresh perspective when you've been able to step out and do something that you really like to do. Then we also don't want to forget our family and friends. When we're in grad and professional school, sometimes they're the first ones who we lose communication with. So setting the expectation and even setting a certain date and time, often like in undergrad when we're like, Mom, I'm going to call you on Tuesdays at 8 o'clock, and that becomes your sacred time for your conversation with mom, auntie, sister, friend, whomever it may be. Do that in grad and professional school so that you can have that connection to home. More importantly, you don't want them to worry about you if you suddenly fall off the radar because you're so invested in your research and doing a great job. You also want to schedule your me time. That goes back to the hobbies, but more importantly, sometimes you just need to protect your own schedule. And in protecting our schedules, that means putting in a standing appointment with yourself. Is it a 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, or is it a 10 a.m. on a Saturday, or a longer time frame? But schedule your me time and hold that time sacred so that everyone knows that that's your time. They have to ask permission, and you give permission for them to step into that time. Don't try to do everything at once. When you're transitioning into your first year in grad and professional school, a lot is coming at you. There are so many transitions to go through: academic, getting to know your faculty members, getting to know the campus, getting to know the community, trying to do a great job, reading every single word, trying to make sure you have a handle on what's to come. But again, don't try to do everything at once. They say, hey, we want you to be a part of this organization, great, consider it, but also be mindful of your schedule and your other responsibilities and obligations. That's again where your good mentors and peer group will come into play to help you out, to protect your time a bit and not to become overwhelmed. And most importantly, ask for help. It never hurts to ask for help. It's only to your advantage. Even when you know the answer, asking for help gives you confirmation, as well as shows someone else that you're invested in wanting to do the right thing. It's all about you, and moving forward and making sure you start and finish your grad and professional school career. So with that being said, I will open it up for questions because I know we covered quite a bit of information, but again, I want to make sure that we have covered the questions that you have. In addition, you will receive additional resources, not only this PowerPoint, but a nifty resource guide that I've created for you in an email. John will send that out following this. But for right now, please do either in chat or John takes the mics off. There's about 9 people here. I don't know if that'll get too crazy. Ask what questions you may have. Everyone's good to go? Clear? No questions at all? I see Michelle typing a question. Fantastic. And that's just a general guideline. But within that schedule, and you will get it in hard copy format, use that schedule and chart things out and put that on the front of your notebook. Get a three ring binder, and kind of go through and put that on the front of your notebook, as well as put a calendar inside so that you can list when every single grad and professional school application deadline is, and then all of those other things. So I'm glad you found that schedule helpful, but it's definitely one, customize that completely out. Another question, typical time frame that employers would like for you to work until funding. It depends on the program. Some programs, especially in business, they want you to work 2 to 3 years. Some employers, they will ask if you're working and then wanting to go to school, they will ask for time on the back end, meaning if they provide additional tuition remission, they will ask for 2 or 3 years for you to commit to an additional 2 to 3 years of employment for them. Others, if you're going part-time, it's kind of built in that you are keeping your full-time employment, and they will only reimburse you with a certain letter grade. So it varies across the board for employers and what they're wanting you to do for funding. And the economy has a lot to do with it. A lot of industry employers used to provide 100% tuition and reimburse with a grade of B plus. I'm sorry, with a grade of B or better, no matter the course. Now a lot of those have scaled back. And it must be a B plus or better in a course and a program and an actual program that will benefit your current position. Others are, they've lowered the overall amount that they're providing for tuition. So again, it varies with each employer. My pleasure. So definitely ask. Go to your human resources person, Google it on your industry website. And oftentimes that's a smart way also to go to school if you are one who can commit to the longer hours of doing a full-time and part-time, full-time employment, part-time program, or committing to a company for 5 to 7 years, depending on the length of a program and the amount of time that they're asking you to commit following payment of a degree. Great question, and that will be campus specific. Some programs and institutions are very mindful of uh, families and knowing that it's not just one person that's moving, especially as society continues to shift and change. And we have more, and I don't like to use the term non-traditional, but that's what current context is available, as more individuals with families, with partners, are moving in order to advance themselves and their careers. For example, here in the Indianapolis and Bloomington campus, there are daycare centers. And so that makes it easier to be on campus because of the childcare that's provided. Others, if you're working and relocating, again, the employer may have childcare options. Um, After hours will depend on the graduate program. Some faculty advisors and mentors, they're very specific about what time they want you in the lab. And sometimes, you are at the mercy of that experiment and it running properly. So it becomes part of what does the institution have available and what your peer group and support network is also available. We have students who transition all the time with family. And becomes that peer group support. We had a single mother who moved from the South to be in our PhD program in the School of Medicine. And literally it was her peers who took babysitting as their break because, of course, you can't do anything but laugh when you're around children. So being with them and taking turns babysitting, he was then very little, was something that they all enjoyed. So the peer group and the community support becomes very, very important. So good question. Um, Thanks, Margaret. Time management is definitely key in grad and professional school. Everyone has 24 hours. It's how we choose to use them. Knowing your work schedule. I'm sorry, knowing your productivity schedule is really important because if you're a morning person, you want to make sure you carve out time in the morning to get your most work. To get most of your work done, meaning that's when you're clearest, that's when you are most focused, and you can get things done. If you're a night owl, take advantage of being a night owl and don't try and change your patterns too much. Of course, you have to accommodate your lab and your advisors and mentors, but you want to be mindful of what works best for you. If you know that on Saturday mornings, those golden hours are 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., that's your protected time. That's when you knock out those reports and you protect that time. For you to get things done. But again, sleep patterns will change a little bit. And then after you are finished as doctor, you can go back to your original sleep pattern if you know and can remember what that was. Good questions. What else do you have in terms of questions, in terms of the application process, the transition in terms of making it in grad school? I cannot suggest the peer group and community support enough within transitioning to a new program and understanding the social transitions that will take place on both sides. Yours personally, if family is coming with you, as well as from the departmental standpoint and them getting to know you, it is definitely a conversation and continued learning process that happens. And especially if you're doing a geographic move, if you're doing a weather move, meaning if you're going from a cold weather climate to a warm weather climate, or you've been in a warm weather climate and this is the first time you're going to see snow, be prepared for all those things and be open-minded, for those. The application process, again, if you're looking to apply during this admission cycle, now's the time. Everything should be in edit mode, review mode, making those last minute requests of your letter writers, and really just focusing in on a quality application and getting things done early. If you have yet to sign up for your standardized exam, do that immediately, unless you feel like you're going to rush to study. You definitely want to get that taken care of. Depends on the institution. Great question about the online platform. It depends on the program and institution. Departments will have available positions typically listed, or they will know them. This is where engaging with the department and program becomes very important. If they make them available online, or whether they share them as they create your admissions offer. Uh, Other programs will completely list them online, like the School of Education always has theirs listed and open. Some of the STEM departments will have a couple of the TA positions listed, but again, it becomes department and program specific. There are a lot of places generally, like for example, we have the grad grants, and there's a special area within there for assistantships of all disciplines available. So it really is program and discipline specific. Ask the program, ask the department, ask the graduate school or recruiter, and they can definitely direct you to where there's information. In the resource guide that I will send you, there will be some general places, pathways to science.org, or Institution for Broadening Participation has an excellent resource on options that are available. So you'll get that link and additional information in that resource guide that will have hopefully some additional information about GA positions and that sort of information. I sure will, Meredith, not a problem. And if they have any additional questions, you can email me, or we can set up another one that's specific to you all as well. So. Yep, and as John just said, it is recorded, so they can go back into this one and click on it. And then if there's still additional questions, just feel free to email. International, that takes even more time management in the sense of the application process. Because with the international perspective, knowing where, if you're currently an undergrad, where past members of your community have gone, helps to create those connections. So taking advantage of that resource, taking advantage of your career and grad professional support office on campus helps with that, to finding those areas and schools that are definitely related to your interests. And if you do have alumni or other partners that are there, again, asking and reaching out to alumni, to individuals, to faculty and staff. This is where your professional conferences also start to come into play, and researching journals and seeing where the field is to know which place internationally is going to be the best. Also, when you think international, you want to think just like geographically when you're finding the best fit domestically. Do I want to be here long term? Is this a place where I'm going for the research, or is this in just completing the degree, or is this a place that I can become a part of the community and really see myself for at least 3, 4, 5 years following the completion of my graduate or professional program? That becomes really important internationally because it is a greater step, but more importantly, the information and the collaborations that you can create internationally for domestic as well as cohorts that you would have there. But working with your current campus resources, working with alumni, working with professional organizational resources are all key on that international perspective. And financing becomes even more important on the international perspective. Great question, Michelle. That's one I was going to ask myself. Because there's lots of topics to be discussed within grad and professional school, even within these areas. Thinking about career advancement, thinking about the difference between higher ed, industry, and academy. How was my degree versatile enough to bounce, to give me a wide opportunity for career development and trajectory? So very, very good question.